What? There's no what?
So the last letter of the first five words, you switch the hand.
Again? The last letter of these first five words of Shemos, the Ele, is a Hey, right? Then you have a Tuf, Shemos. Then you have a Yud, then you have a Lamed, and you have a Mem.
Yeah, but I'm saying in that order.
Not in the right order. I didn't say the order, but you have five letters at the end of the first five words that spells Tillim. Pasuk is saying you want to get rid of problems. Ve'ele mos b'nei Yisrael hagoyim. These are names of the Jewish people that entered Golus, that were coming into exile, into Mitzrayim. And the last letter goes on getting rid of, ending all the problems of Jews entering exile. You have five letters here. The last letter of the first word is a Hey, then you have a Tuf. Not in the right order, but it spells Tehillim. Hey, Tuf, Yod, Lamed, Mem. In rearranged order, you have a Tuf, Hey, Lamed, Yod, Mem. Saying Tehillim is the greatest thing for getting rid of all kinds of problems. Hinted in the first five words of the parsha. Got it? We're going to learn about Bitachon today. The Sicha, with every year, such a powerful Sicha, it's hard to resist. It's in volume 36 of the Rebbe's Sichas. What is the actual meaning of Bitachon? What does it mean to trust in Hashem? So we're going to learn about the difference between faith and trust. Very big difference. If you have trust in Hashem, you certainly have faith. But having faith does not mean you have trust. The Ramban says that, Nachmanides. Whoever believes does not necessarily trust. Whoever trusts certainly believes. And we'll talk about it before I get to other little tidbits, I want to talk a little bit about the parasha before we get into that actual Sicha. So I can hand out the Sicha to you. It's in English, Hebrew English. Just distribute it. We have some more here also. Taken from, everyone have this? This is the Rebbe's Sichas in English. And of course, I'm sure you all have this. Rabbi Bitachon, or can't go without that. Figured you have it right. So we're going to learn this. You might have heard the Sicha, but we're going to learn inside. Before we get into the Sicha, and probably not finish the Sicha today, and because there's a lot more than just this Sicha. The Rebbe has a lot of different talks about Bitachon. It's so important, so relevant, especially today. But before we get into that, I want to just discuss several things. Number one, the name of the parsha. What's the name of the parsha? And the name of the whole Chumash?
Choice.
How about in English? Exodus. Doesn't seem to be a fair translation. Names, Exodus. It is about the Exodus. But yet we call the whole Chumash, and especially the parsha that we're today is the first parsha of the Chumash Shemos. It's Shemos. The entire Chumash is Shemos, and the first Sedra is Shemos. What does Shemos mean? Names. But here comes the Rebbe with a very powerful question. The Rebbe's question is, what is the parsha all about? Let's describe the topic of the parsha. What exactly is happening in this parsha? If you look into it, you'll see there's no light on either side of the tunnel. Last week, Vayechi, Yaakov was still around. Finally, he passed away, but Yosef was still around, and the tribe, Yosef was the first one to pass away. His other brothers, his 11 brothers, were still alive. And as long as they were still alive, there was no bondage. There was no shibud. There was no slavery at all. In fact, Pharaoh treated them very nicely. Respected Yosef. And thus, things were working out well. Yes, they were in Mitzrayim. They were not in their homeland, in the Jewish homeland, but still. It's before the darkness started. Next week's parsha, when the Makkos, the 10 plagues, start beginning. We see light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be a geula. The Egyptians are suffering. And the following parsha, next week is 7 of the 10 plagues, and the following after that, 2 weeks later, is the other 3. But what happens in this week's parsha? It's dark as dark can get. One decree after another decree. Jews, babies are are crushed into a wall, and Para, who became a leper, bathes in their blood. I mean, it's horrific. Doctors say you have to have 150 babies slaughtered in the morning and bathe in their blood in the morning and in the evening. That will heal your skin lesion, among Islam. And the Jews are crying. And then at the end of the parasha, it gets even worse, where Moshe is baffled. Moshe Rabbeinu, told by Hashem to come and save the Jewish people and tell Paro once and for all, send my people out of here, liberate the Jewish people so they can serve me. And what happens? Things get worse. To the extent that Moshe cries out to Hashem and screams, Lama hari hazel, why have you done this to your children? Now, if Moshe is baffled, you can see how dark it is. If Moshe is like, what's going on over here? He sent me for a shlichus and he just made things worse. It ends off with God saying, you'll see. But okay, we haven't seen anything. This week's parsha, it's all dark. So here comes the Rebbe's question. If any name is not appropriate for this parsha, it's the name names. Because the word name indicates three things. Number one, whose names are we talking about? The names of whom? Whose names? These are the names of the Jewish people, the 12 tribes. As long as they were alive, there was no bondage. So when you're referring to the names of the 12 Shvatim, it has very little to do with the Parsha. The Parsha is all about the aftermath, after they died. The names indicates that they're here. Their existence prevented the whole Golus. Number two, when you call a person by a name, which Hashem did, he calls Reuven, Shimon, what does that show? Love. In fact, the Rebbe says the greatest expression of love, even more than a hug and a kiss, is calling a person by a name. Because hugging and kissing, you can't do while the person's asleep, but you can call a person by name while the person's asleep. There's no limit. It's a very deep expression of love, especially when you repeat the name, when you call the person by a name, a loving name. Chanele, Rachele, Yassel, Mendele. It shows, and if you repeat the name, Avram, it shows an incredible amount of chiba, of love. Was Hashem showing his love? Of course he has love. Was Hashem displaying his love in this week's parsha? Not at all. So the names, when you refer to names, it seems to express the opposite of the parsha. The names, naming Jewish people is not exactly what's happening here. Hashem is not displaying his love in this week's parsha. And thirdly, if you look into the Medrash, every one of the names represents another facet of Geula. Reuven, God saw our affliction. He heard our Shimon, he heard our cries. Levi means to connect, like Malava Malka, to connect. He empathized with us. He felt our pain and responded. Yehuda, thank you. We all said thank you to Hashem for the miracles. Yisachar, we got rewarded. We got all the bounty of Egypt. We got a lot of the whatever was left there. We emptied out Egypt. That's our reward. Yisachar, Yeshchar. Zvulun means a house, an abode, a place to live. Hashem had us build a Mishkan. So every one of the names, I'm not going to go into all the names, but every one of the names represents something very positive. And yet the parsha is about something so negative. So how do you explain that? So the Rebbe says like this, very powerful. A name has two opposites. On the one hand, a name tells you nothing about the person. I know many people who have the same name and they're as different as night from day. And you have people with different names that are somewhat similar. So a name does not describe the person's character at all. It tells you nothing about the person. Not like a light, like a shine, a ray, sun rays tells you about. You can't compare sun rays to moonlight or moonlight to candlelight. The light of the candle tells you how strong the source is. The light of the moon tells you, well, this is stronger. And the light of the sun tells a story about the source. But the name does not tell you a story about the person who bears that name, who carries that name at all. And if I look at the person and study his personality, I will not guess your name. There's no guessing game over here. So a name shows nothing, reveals nothing. On the other hand, something very powerful about a name. You know what that is? It doesn't reveal anything, but it's connected to the essence of the person. And we see when a person faints, I witnessed it myself, when a person faints, loses consciousness, one of the ways of bringing back this person, not medically accepted, is to call the person by his or her Hebrew name. If it doesn't help the first time, try it again and again, and mention maybe the mother's name, and that will somehow bring back the life that sort of left the body back into the body. A name is like a handle to the neshama. It has the power to draw the neshama back into the body. Okay? And nothing else can do that. Only a name has that power of drawing very deep. It's, on the one hand, very superficial, has nothing to do with you, has very little to do with you, tells you nothing about the person. But when the person is called by his or her name, it draws energy. It's the power to draw. It doesn't reveal, but it draws. Just like a handle, how do I hope this doesn't have a handle, but you have a pot that has a handle. With the handle, you can pick the pot up. Although the handle is not part of the pot. The pot I can use without the handle. But in order to have access to the pot, to move the pot, you need the handle. The name is like a base yad, a handle to the person's soul. It draws the soul back into, that's why when a person is very sick and the doctor is giving up, we sometimes add a name. Adding a name can add a new pipeline of energy. So a name draws very deep. Says the Rebbe, that's exactly what Golos is all about. In Golos, we're in the dark. Just like a name does not reveal, does not reflect the one who carries the name, Golos does not reflect God at all. We see darkness, we see question marks, we have no answers. Why did this happen? Crazy event, tragedy here, tragedy there. What's going on over here? We have questions, we don't have answers. Like a name. It's a puzzle. Why is your name Chana, your name Rachel? I don't see any connection to Chana or Rachel. So it's like a name is like Golos, but Golos has the other quality, has a good part to it also, has something very positive to it. The flip side is that because we are in Golos and we don't have our minds, our conscious, our minds and our hearts are not open, we're closed. Distractions, troubles, internal troubles, external troubles. Everyone has their own, we don't have to go. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. We all have our issues. Some have more, some have less, some more, but everyone has things that we wish they wouldn't have. Problems, because we're in Golos. And our minds are not, it's so hard to meditate before you daven on Hashem. It doesn't come easy. It's so hard. It's so not visualizing Hashem. Forget about that. Unlike when we had the Beis Hamikdash, people just saw, like you see your 5 fingers, they saw open miracles on a daily basis. They saw Elokus, they felt godliness. It was visceral, it was palpable. And their emotions, their heart was opened on a daily basis. You don't have to dig deeper, it was just natural. But when you're in Golos, and your mind and heart are shut off, and you have to dig deeper, there's an adrenaline. When you know that there's something holding you back, you break through and you dig deeper into your soul. You reach a part of you that you never even knew of. That you never even knew of when we had the Beis Hamikdash, we didn't need to have that part. That part was not needed. That essential energy was not drawn because we didn't need to. Everything was going fine. But when you have a darkness, then we need to draw much deeper. And we reach a part of our soul we could not reach when we have the Beis Hamikdash. Like a name. A name Golos is exactly like a name. On the one hand, it's dark. On the other hand, we have the power, because it's dark, to draw deeper and to connect to the essence of our souls, the yechida of our nefesh. When there's no force, when you're not forced to do so, you just don't do so. When you're squeezed, the best comes out. Okay, so that the Rebbe says it's exactly the word names is a perfect title for the parsha. Golos. Golos has a flip side, has a negative side and a positive side to it. Names have a negative. I don't know who you are by your name, but if I call you by your name, I can draw you to me. I can draw your attention. The story with the Alter Rebbe and Simon Tzedek, I'll leave that out. So that's one part I wanted to mention something else also, something very interesting. There is it's written in the Zohar, Kabbalah, that Moshe and Yisro were actually brothers in a previous Gilgal. What? It says that Cain killed Hevel. By the way, how does Rashis end off? Finally, all the brothers with such brotherly problems with Cain kills Hevel, Shmuel and Yitzchak didn't get along, and then we have Yaakov and Esav, then we have Yosef and his brothers. Finally, at the end, reconciliation to the ultimate degree, where Yosef doesn't take revenge, on the contrary, he's Makar of them, and it ends off beautifully, brotherly love. But what about Cain killing Hevel? That didn't turn out very well. Shmuel did tshuva. Esav also didn't make peace, but nothing happened at the end, so no problems. But what about the Cain Hevel saga? The first murder. Hevel's dead. Cain killed Hevel. So it's brought down that Hevel was reincarnated in Moshe Rabbeinu. And Cain had three parts of his soul. Two of which, one can go either way. That's a middle level. There's the Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. The Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh of Cain. Split into three different people. The Neshama of Cain went into Yisro. The highest level of Cain, the cognitive levels of Cain, his potential of being a good person, was reincarnated into Yisro. The middle level of Cain, which could go either way, in Korach. Story with Korach. Korach, what happened to him at the end? He was buried. He went earthquake. What happened? And then there's a third part of Cain that's not salvable, that you cannot elevate, can't sublimate, it's gone. It's the part of Cain that causes the problem and does not allow the higher part of Cain to be sublimated. And Yisro is stuck until the Mitzri, the Egyptian, there's an Egyptian that Moshe Rabbeinu killed. Guess what? That Egyptian carried the nefesh, the lowest part of Cain, in his soul. And when that Mitzri died, Yisro, who had the other part of Cain's soul, was able to be sublimated. The Mitzri had to be done away with, in order for Yisro to have his return. So when Cain and Hevel, when Yisro and Moshe met, don't forget, what did Moshe tell? What did Yisro tell his daughters after they said Ish Mitzri Hitzilanu? What do they really mean by saying an Egyptian man saved us? Al Pi Kabbalah means the fact that the Mitzri was dead, that has saved us. Now we can reunite. Now Cain and Hevel can reunite. So when Yisro meets Moshe, Yisro tells his daughter, so why'd you let him go? Call him back. Let's meet. So Cain and Hevel actually have a revisiting. They unite together. What were Cain and Hevel fighting for? What did they fight over? What was the fight about? About a woman. Hevel was born with a triplet. Hevel had two sisters. One he married. Cain married his sister. But the extra twin they were fighting over. Cain said, I'm older than you. I'm the firstborn. Hevel says, but she's my sister. And Cain kills Hevel. This sister, this triplet, was reincarnated in Zipporah. Zipporah, which happened to be Moshe Rabbeinu's wife. She was the woman. Now Hevel, whose Moshe, gets back Zipporah. Zipporah was taken, this girl was taken by Cain. Cain kills Hevel, and now the reverse takes place. Cain and Hevel, the Shema of Cain and Hevel meet together, and everything is rectified. So here we have in Parsha Shemos that the one part of Bereshis that never had its tikkun, Cain killing Hevel, is taken care of. When Yisro and Moshe were united, father-in-law and son-in-law, it was actually two brothers that were connected together. In fact, in Parshas Yisro, when Yisro says to Moshe, I am your father-in-law, Yisro, it's a very strange way of greeting your son-in-law. I, your father-in-law, Yisro. Those three words, Ani, Chosencha, your father-in-law, Yisro, spelled my brother. Aleph, Ani is Aleph. Chosencha begins with a Ches, and Yisro begins with a Yud. Achi. So Yisro was actually telling Moshe, you are my brother in a previous lifetime. And now it's time for us to reconcile. And unless brothers make up peace with each other, the Torah can't be given. The Torah is here to make peace in the world. If brothers can't get along, and the Torah can't be given. This is what the Arizal writes. pretty spooky, pretty airy. But he says in this week's parsha we have that. And one more thing I want to mention: the burning bush. What exactly did Moshe Rabbeinu see in the burning bush? What was going on over there? What did he see? It says he turned. He turned away. What's the actual language? The actual language is that Moshe Rabbeinu, the wording of the pasuk is that Moshe Rabbeinu let me share. The actual words in Parshas Shemos, take a look. Very powerful. Tomorrow's chitas with the burning bush. There it is. Yeah. Sees a fire, and the snare, the burning bush, the bush is burning, but it doesn't get consumed. So what does Moshe say? Let me turn away from there. Let me turn away. Turn away from what? Asurana. Let me turn. What is he turning from? The Rashi says, Asura Mekan, let me move away from where I am to get closer to the bush. Of course, when you're getting closer, you're moving away from where you were. Let me move away from where I am now to get closer. Just say, let's get closer. The answer is Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't just moving physically, a few steps closer to the bush. He noticed in that fire that this fire is the fire of Jewish suffering for many, many centuries, thousands of years, which include even the Holocaust. Moshe foresaw that in this fire is the fire of Jewish pain and suffering over generations. But the sneh, Jewish people who are compared to thorns, are not getting consumed. Somehow they are eternal. Nothing can destroy them. They are impervious to destruction. So Moshe is wondering, what's the story? Why is this happening? If they're so precious that nothing can destroy them, why does God cause them so much suffering? And he went away from his private life. Moshe says, I'm going away from my private life. I'm no longer a private person. I'm becoming a public figure. I'm now going to give all my heart and soul to help the Jewish people. He started doing that at the beginning of the parsha when he saved the Jewish life from the Egyptian. Then he saw two Jews fighting and he stopped them. Then he came to the rescue of the daughters of Israel. Good person. Intervening, not sitting passive, taking a stand, not afraid to get involved, to do what might be politically incorrect. That's not a leader. But where did he really start? In his heart and soul, becoming a Rebbe, the first Rebbe, he was the first Rebbe. When he saw the fire, he saw what is going on over here. I don't care about my private life anymore. I am completely going to involve myself with figuring out why Hashem, why are you doing this? So it's interesting. You look at the Chumash, you'll see this is powerful. Moshe says, let me take a look at this. Why is the sneh not burning? What's happening over here? What's the secret? And if they're so precious that they don't deserve to die, the Jewish people are an eternal people, why are they suffering so much? It says, Vayar Hashem, and Hashem's name is mentioned here, that Moshe is turning towards the sneh, turning towards figuring out why Jews have to suffer so much. What's the reason for this fire? Hashem says to Moshe, and he calls him by name, Moshe, I like you for that. I appreciate the fact you're becoming a public figure and caring about your flock. And he calls him for the first time by his name twice, Moshe. And Moshe responds, Hineni, I'm here. Then it says further, don't go too close. Take off your shoes. Ki hamokim, was the place you're standing on, is holy ground. What he meant to say is, you don't have to. You have to realize that the makom means the place, the madrega, the level you are in right now, where you're feeling the pain of other people, is a very holy feeling. Take off your shoes. I want you to feel the ground. Just like you're feeling the pain of others, I want you to feel it palpably, that your feet should feel the pain of standing on the ground without shoes. Because where you're standing, the level you're on right now is a very holy level. I appreciate it. Hashem is telling Moshe, I really appreciate it. Okay, but where's the answer? So Hashem says to Moshe, here's a real Rebbe. I want to tell you something. I want to reveal to you Anochi Elokei, I am the God, and Hashem used the word Elokei, which is Elokim, which is severity. There's an Anochi, there's the I and all the pain and suffering of the Jewish people. There's the I that's inside, meaning that I can tell you, I have the ability to tell you from my vantage point the secret of why Jews have to suffer so much. You want the answer? Hashem was inviting Moshe Rabbeinu to his bedroom and saying, would you want to see the world from my perspective? And then you'll have all the answers to all the questions why Jews are suffering throughout so many hundreds of years. When Moshe heard that, well, oh, no, I don't want to hear the answer. Don't tell me. Why? A gift like that? To see the world from Hashem's perspective? What a gift. Who was ever offered a gift like that? Nobody before, nobody after. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? I don't want it. Why? Why did he not want it?
Because he wants to relate to us.
That's right. Because he cares more about crying with us than being in Hashem's domain. I'm not here to my own purpose. Yeah, if I want to care about my own personal spirituality, of course I would accept it. I'm a Rebbe. I care about my flock. I want to cry with them. I won't be able to cry anymore if I know the answer. I want to cry with them. A mother takes out, a splinter from a child, the child's screaming. The mother is sha. She knows what she's doing. I don't want to be like the mother. I want to cry with my brethren. I am in their side. I'm a little person, just like they are. I don't want any answers. You know what happened later on? In Parshat Yisisa, Moshe says, I would like to know the answer now. Too late, Hashem says, when I offer to you. And by the way, you were right for not wanting. I appreciate your not wanting. But now you can't have it now. In Parshat Yisisa, Hashem says, show me your face. Show me who. And let me see behind all the scenes. The Soid HaTzimtzum, the secret behind all negativity. What's the good? Which will only be revealed when Mashiach comes. So Moshe refused to accept it, and then when he wanted it, it was too late. But you know what happened? Moshe Rabbeinu says, I don't want to hear the answers. I don't want to hear any answers. I want the Geula, but down here, that we can appreciate it. Hashem says, okay, you're going to get it. Had you not, if you would have accepted my offer, the Geula might have lasted longer. But because you did not accept it, you revealed Hashem's midah of rachamim, which does not allow for any kind of, deep reasons. Hashem, I'll bring you, okay, I will bring the Geula in a revealed way. So Moshe Rabbeinu, by not accepting that offer, triggered midas harachamim, and the Geula came about. This is it's just a synopsis of a tiny. It's not really the whole. It's much more longer. The whole story as it goes. There's a lot more details to it, but this is just a shortcut synopsis of what's mentioned in a medrash. And Moshe Rabbeinu was a real rebbe, a real leader. That's what leaders do. They care about their people more than their own personal gain. Then you know that person is for real. Now, a lot of tzaddikim, a lot of great people, but they're not public figures. They're private. Oh, wow. Wow, this was.
Now
I can say it. Okay, so now let's start the Sicha. The Sicha, just in time. Sicha is without fear or worry. And we're going to learn about the power of Bitachon, what Bitachon actually means. But it's in English, so you could say it. We can have people saying it. I don't have to hear me talk the whole time. It's in English. It's in Hebrew also. On the right side is Hebrew, where it says Moshe, Vayigal Moshe grew older. Vayetzi Alechav, he was like 20 years old. Some say he was a 40. Vayar, and he sees a man, a Mitzri, an Egyptian man, Makkah, hitting a Jewish man. You know who the Jewish man was? Who? You can't hear what?
those the troublemakers.
Yes, troublemakers. And what was the story? You know the whole story behind it. He was a lady called Shlemis Bas Divri, and she didn't know. She thought it was her husband. Mitzri quietly came into her bedroom, and and then when this Mitzri realized that her husband is there, he wanted to kill him, to cover up the whole story. That's the story. So she's the only woman of all the women in Israel that was ever, violated. So let's see the inside. Let's see the English inside. What wants to say? Anyone want to say? Any offers here? Nobody? One thing? Okay.
No, I can read it.
So yeah, very humble. But
The Torah first mentions Moshe's actions as an adult in the following narrative. And Moshe came of age and went out to his brethren. He saw an Egyptian man beating one of his Hebrew brethren, and he smote the Egyptian. He went out the next day and saw two Hebrew men quarreling. He said to the wicked one, "Why are you hitting your fellow?" The wicked one replied, "Do you intend to kill me like you killed the Egyptian?" Moshe became frightened, and he said, "The matter has indeed become known."
which matter?
That he killed
They
him.
killed the Egyptian. Paro hears, Paro heard.
Paro heard that, and he sought to kill Moshe, and Moshe fled. On the phrase, "and Moshe became frightened," Rashi comments, the verse should be understood according to its plain meaning. Alternatively, according to the Midrash, he was worried because he saw wicked informers among the Jewish people. He thought, if this is so, perhaps they are not worthy of being redeemed. The question arises, why does the plain meaning that Moshe feared for his life because it had become public knowledge that he killed the Egyptians not suffice? Why must Rashi also cite the interpretation of the Midrash that Moshe's concern was that his brethren would not deserve to be redeemed, which is not at all alluded to in the verse?
Also, besides that, it's also strange to say that Moshe felt that the Jews would be redeemed. Wasn't there a promise? Hashem promised them they would be redeemed? It's a little bit difficult. This medrash is not as simple at all. And Rashi could have just sufficed with the first simple shot. Moshe was afraid that now and he said, "Alas, it seems like everyone knows, or it's known that I killed this Misri." So simple. What forced Rashi into citing a medrash? In particular, continue.
In particular, this interpretation of Moshe's fear warrants explanation because it also necessitates interpreting the continuation of the verse. And he said the matter has indeed become known in a non-literal manner.
Well, if you say that he was afraid not of his life, but afraid of the Jewish people not being worthy, then then you have to change the meaning of Acheno de Hadavar. You have to change the meaning of the matter has been known. What matter has been known? It's not about his fear. He wasn't afraid of his life. He was afraid the Jews will be redeemed. And then he says, "Uh-oh, now the matter has been known." What matter? You got to change and make a whole new shot over here. What's matter? Which is the matter? What matter was known? What does Rafi say? No.
Oh, that he was scared.
No.
Oh, I don't know.
Now I finally understand why the Jews have to suffer so much. I never figured out why the Jews suffer for 210 years, for so many years. What did they do wrong? I think I know now. Look who this guy is. He sees that Jews are informers. He sees that he's about to be informed on that this person is threatening Moshe, that I'm going to inform Paro. When he sees that, Moshe says, "Uh-oh, now I know, now I have an answer to the question I always had for so many years. Why are Jews suffering?" Achen, alas, no the Hadavar. Now it's known. Unfortunately, now I see they deserve what they're going through. That's also quite strange. So Rashi has to take that out. According to the simple meaning, it means the matter of killing the mystery was known. But now that you explained that the fear was not about his life, but the fear about that Jews will not be redeemed, what matter has been known? I'm afraid they won't be redeemed, and now I know why they've suffered. A new shot altogether. And that raises wonder. First of all, also it's very strange. What do you mean you didn't understand why Jews were suffering? Wasn't it decreed in the times of Avraham Avinu, before the Jews were even existed as people? Wasn't it decreed years ago, hundreds of years ago, in the time of Avraham, that Jews will have to be in Mitzrayim for so many years in a land that's not theirs? So it's a decree from Hashem. It's not because of sin, not because of bad deeds. What's Moshe wondering? So these are questions that should bother anyone learning Rashi. Why does Rashi? I was about to ask about you. It's just the thought of asking brought you in here. Amazing much. Yeah, care.
Sorry.
You don't go unnoticed. Nobody gets unnoticed here. Everyone's noticed. So what's going on? Why does Rashi resort to a medrash, which is forced to take the simple meaning out of its context, explain the pasuk so differently? Sorry, continue. What's your name? Your name?
Arya.
Ariel. Okay, so continue.
In particular, this interpretation of Moshe's fear warrants explanation. Oh, we already did this. It is possible to offer a plain resolution of the above question.
Wait, you finished the whole,
Actually, I have no idea.
Start again from in particular. In particular.
Start from there?
Yeah, we have one
Okay.
here.
In particular, this interpretation of Moshe's fear warrants explanation because it also necessitates interpreting the continuation of the verse, and he said the matter has become known in a non-literal manner. Instead of its plain meaning that Moshe was concerned about the consequences of having killed the Egyptian, another explanation becomes necessary. Therefore, when commenting on the latter phrase, after stating that this phrase should be interpreted plainly, Rashi also cites the Midrashic interpretation that the matter has become known to me, regarding which I wondered, how did Israel sin so severely to warrant their being subjugated with backbreaking labor?
Right. So now it's a new Acheno de Hadavar has another meaning. Not the matter of me killing the Egyptian had become known, but the matter as to why Jews have to suffer for so long has been known. And Rashi seems to not like the simple pshat. What's wrong with the simple understanding? So the Rebbe says like this: it is possible to offer a plain resolution of the above questions. Continue. Good.
It is possible to offer a plain resolution of the above question. Rashi was seeking to address the general difficulty raised by the verse, and Moshe became frightened and he said, the matter has indeed become known. Why does the Torah mention this point? After all, Moshe's fear did not lead to any immediate action, for he did not flee to Midian until after Paro heard about the matter and sought to kill
You
him.
understand what you just said? What's bothering Rashi? Moshe was afraid. Would it lead to anything? If it would have said Moshe was afraid and thus he ran away, Torah is not a novel. It's like a movie to make it, to display emotions here, just for the sake of making it more exciting. The Torah only mentions people's emotions if it leads to something. Like by the brothers, they got scared, and the brother was scared that Yosef wants to hurt them, and they did something as a result of the fear. What did Moshe remain do as a result of his fear? Nothing. Why discuss his fear? Had it said Vayira Moshe and he ran away, he was afraid and he ran. Okay, but it doesn't say that. It says Vayira Moshe. When did he run away? Only after Pari found out about it. So his fear had no consequences. Why the Torah does not describe people's emotions. Had it done that, it would be a lot longer. There's so much to describe. You just imagine, the emotions of Leah and Rachel when that happened. There's so many things, and you would love to see how they felt, to make a movie out of it. But Torah doesn't do that. It only describes emotions when it leads to something. They were afraid and they ran away. They were afraid and they said. But Vayira Moshe was afraid. And there's nothing following. There's no follow-up. There's no continuation. That's what's bothering Rashi. Okay, let's go to. That's what this paragraph says. Let's skip the next paragraph because we can. It's a parenthetical paragraph. We can skip that. Let's go to the last paragraph on page 5. I mean, not the last paragraph, the third paragraph on page 5. Nevertheless. Continue. What's your Hebrew name?
Yeah.
It's such a nice name. You still use your English name? You use Petro?
I actually just started using Yael.
So I'll continue using your Yael. The Yael is a very powerful name.
So is it on page 6?
Page 5, actually. No, page 5, nevertheless. You have page 5? The third, nevertheless.
Nevertheless, we are not given an explanation as to why the Torah tells us that Moshe became frightened. To resolve this question, Rashi cites the interpretation of the Midrash, which explains that Moshe's fear was not motivated by concern for his own future, but rather resulted from his worry that perhaps the Jewish people were worthy of redemption.
So that's why Rashi resorts to a medrash, because according to a simple chop, the fear has it's in a vacuum. It has no follow-up. It just Moshe was afraid, okay, and therefore he was afraid. What am I to know he was afraid? Okay. So here we go to the next part, when the great become frightened. This is a very powerful part of the Sicha where the Rebbe discusses, we find by Yaakov he was afraid, even though he was promised, I'll be with you. Moshe was promised, don't be afraid, and yet they both had fear. In spite of Hashem promising everything will be all right. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? on the one hand, you could say, wow, such humility. They felt, I don't deserve all this good. Maybe I sinned. Who knows? I'm always worried that maybe I don't. Do I really deserve Hashem's kindness and goodness? Isn't that humility? So there's one opinion that says when, as we'll soon see, when Yaakov and Moshe were not, they were not, they were not satisfied with Hashem's promise. It was because they didn't trust themselves. They had a lack of trust of who they were. They were humble, tremendously humble, and they felt, who are we to deserve, to think that we deserve all this? Probably we sinned, we did something wrong, maybe we're not even conscious of, and therefore I don't know if Hashem's promise will still continue. That's one way of looking at it. But then there are others who say no, that Yaakov and Avraham and Moshe were both lacking in bitachon. They should not have had any questions, any doubts. Even to say, well, I want to be humble, even that's wrong. And Rebbe's going to soon discuss why that is. What is the reason for this? What is the reason why one should have this bitachon? What's wrong with being humble? Wait, let's go ahead. Our sages taught. Want to continue?
Yes. This principle should certainly apply in the present instance, where Rashi not only gives an alternative, straightforward, the pshuto explanation of Moshe's fear, but presents it before the midrashic interpretation. We must therefore assume that even according to the plain meaning of the phrase, and Moshe became frightened, that he fears for his life because it has become known that he killed the Egyptian. There is an explanation, at least according to the approach of
Rush.
as to why the Torah mentions his fear. To understand the above, let us first cite the comments of the Midrash on the verse. And Yaakov became very frightened and he was distressed. Rav Pinchas said in the name of Rav Reuven, two people received promises from Hashem, the foremost of the patriarchs and the foremost of the prophets, and nonetheless they became frightened. The foremost of the patriarchs, this is Yaakov, then told him, behold, I will be with you. And yet ultimately Yaakov became very frightened. The foremost of the prophets, this is Moshe. Hashem told him, behold, I will be with you. And yet ultimately Moshe became frightened. This is intimidated by the verse. And Hashem told Moshe, do not fear him.
This refers to Og Melech HaBashar, the giant. Hashem said, don't be afraid. Now, you don't tell a person don't be afraid if the person is not afraid. And it's relevant to offer the reassurance to not fear him, only into one who fears. No. This is later on in Chumash, the end of the Chumash, where Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid to fight the big giant Og, because Og did tell, there's a story, yeah, a certain schus Og that he told Avram about Lot and saved Lot's life. So he has some kind of schus, and Moshe was worried about that. So Hashem says, don't be afraid, don't fear him. And yet Moshe was still afraid. Okay, so the commentaries on the Midrash differ regarding the intent. Continue.
Some maintain that the Midrash is praising Yaakov and Moshe. Although they received promises from Hashem, they did not rely on the promise, fearing that perhaps they had sinned and were thus no longer worthy of Hashem for having Hashem's promise.
That's one way of looking at it. That's praiseworthy.
However, other commentaries say the intent of the Midrash is that one should not learn from their example, where one ought not to be afraid. Rather, one's heart should be settled, trusting in Hashem. This intent is apparent from the plain meaning of the continuation of the Midrash. The prophet Yeshayahu admonishes the Jewish people, telling them, "You have forgotten Hashem who made you, and you are continually fighting throughout the day." The prophet rebukes them for being afraid. The view of the commentary that one ought not to be afraid is their exploration. What is wrong with fearing that one is unworthy of the fulfillment of Hashem's promises because his service is imperfect and he sinned? Contrary, first that, this would appear to be a very positive quality. One's humility is so great that he's always concerned that his divine service is not flawless and that he has sinned. This question draws focus to the nature of the attribute of bitachon, trusting Hashem, which we are commanded to pursue. Bitachon is not merely the faith that Hashem has the potential to bestow good on a person and save him.
Yeah, it's not just faith that Hashem has a potential to save you. I believe that he can do whatever he wants, if he wants.
Hashem will actually do this. And his trust is so absolute that he's completely serene and does not worry at all. As Chalas Halava states, the essence of bitachon is the serenity felt by the person to trust. His heart relies on the one in whom he has placed his trust, and he will do what is best and most appropriate for him in the matter at hand. The grounds for such certainty require explanation. Even when a person has an explicit divine promise, it is possible that sin would cause the promise not to be fulfilled. This surely applies when there is no explicit promise. Moreover, the concern lest sin cause the promise not to be fulfilled is applicable to everyone, where there is no righteous man on earth who does only good and does not sin. If even Yaakov, our patriarch, had this fear, it surely applies to others.
So on what basis should one have bitachon if the sin makes you not worthy of Hashem's promise, even if it was a promise, and how much more so if Hashem never promised you? Why in the world is it so negative to have fear? You're humble. You know who you are. You know that you've sinned. And even if you don't know, you still worry. Well, I'm not going to think I'm worthy of Hashem's benevolence. What is wrong with that? You have a question? Yeah.
Feel like they sin. They always constantly feeling
And not all tzaddikim, but some we see by Yaakov and by Moshe that they always felt short of, they were never satisfied with what they accomplished. There are tzaddikim who have no doubts about themselves, but if you do have doubts, what's wrong with that? Why should that be a problem in the bitachon? Now the Eibush is lacking in your trust in Hashem. You're lacking in trust in yourself. I'm not worthy of it. Yeah.
Because if you don't trust yourself, then you don't trust Hashem.
Why?
Because when you're following Hashem, you can trust that you're.
I'm not following Hashem. I'm not. That's my problem. I trusted him very much. I don't trust that I'm really living up to who I should be. Okay, maybe it's humility, but what's wrong with being humble? Person senses, very sensitive of himself, worried continuously, I'm not fulfilling my quota in life. Seems like and the greater you are, the greater the level of humility in a way. Why would that be? What's going on? What's missing here? That's the key that we have to understand. Especially people that are not on the Madreg of Yaakov, certainly should say to themselves, me, little me, who do I think I am? Hashem is kindness. I mean, Yaakov said, Katanti, I became very small. I don't feel I'm worthy of such an incredible,
Isn't that considered like idolatry or something?
idolatry.
Because you're focusing on yourself and your own imperfection.
Focusing on my, I'm not a deity. I'm nobody. I'm saying I'm a nobody. I'm not worthy. On the contrary, I'm focusing on believing in Hashem's greatness, and in the face of his greatness, who am I? The closer you get to the truth, the less you feel yourself. As the famous story goes, I have a story to tell you. A brother was once testing. He had two people that he was giving a lecture to. One was a guy who was not from at all. In fact, he married a non-Jewish girl, divorced her, and remarried another non-Jewish girl. But he loved learning Chassidus. And he had a very good head for understanding Chassidus. And the other guy was someone who received smicha in a very well-known yeshiva somewhere in Chicago, who went through the entire Talmud. And my brother's giving a shir, and my brother's asking about Moshe Rabbeinu. How is it possible that Moshe Rabbeinu was such a humble person? After all, didn't he know how great he was, and he gave the Torah, and all the miracles happened for Moshe? How could Moshe, was he fooling himself? How could he have been so humble? So the guy's raising his hand, the non-from guy. Oh, come on, Rabbi. Quiet. I'm going to get an answer, each of you privately. I want to hear each one's answer privately. So, see, first he goes into a private room and he asks this fellow who's not from, new. You just answered your own question, Rabbi. Because he was so great, he was so close to the truth, so close to God's presence, he saw how small he was. When you're not that close, in close proximity, you realize how small you are in the face of such a powerful light. People that are distant from Hashem can think there's something. But if you're close to Hashem, my brother says, okay, thank you. I knew you're going to give that answer. 100% right. Then he goes to this person who's Hasidically challenged, and he asks him, no. He's going back and forth, back and forth. I guess I don't have any I'm not sure if this answer is right, but I think this is the only way you can answer the question. Moshe Rabbeinu, after all, he was just human. He's a human being like all of us. And we sometimes overestimate people. So he's saying we're overestimating Moshe. Moshe was a human being, and he realized that he has human flaws. And as a result, he felt humble. So in other words, his conclusion was Moshe is not as great as we all thought he was. He's just human. You don't learn Hasidus. You begin to believe, project these great tzaddikim. They're like me, plus. Just like me, but they have a little bit more. They've learned a little bit more than I have. But if you learn Hasidus, you can even be someone who's not frum. You learn Hasidus, you begin to realize that no, that the closer you get to the truth, the more you realize how tiny, how you're like an infant, and you feel like you have no schus whatsoever. You feel embarrassed and ashamed to even take anything from Hashem. This is how Moshe and Yaakov looked at it. So what's wrong with that? That should be the furthest from idolatry you could possibly imagine. It's believing that Hashem is everything and I'm nothing. Okay. So the Rebbe is going to tackle this, a very important explanation. Okay. You want to read?
I can read.
Go ahead. 3.
Initially, the following explanation can be offered. The concept of bitachon is based on the faith that everything comes from Hashem, must be. Thus, when a person encounters distress and misfortune, this is not because any other factor has controlled chas v'shalom in any manner whatsoever. Rather, everything comes from above. A person with that awareness is therefore utterly serene. Either way, he has no reason to worry. For if he does not deserve that any evil be visited upon him, certainly Hashem will save him from it. This is true even when there is no natural possibility for him to be saved. For who can say to Hashem, "What are you doing?" Moreover, he's able to change the law of nature.
Yeah, so if I don't deserve to be punished, nothing to worry about. Hashem will make a miracle. He's good. He's not going to punish me if I don't deserve it. Continue. If on the other hand, page 9,
he is not worthy of Hashem's kindness, but instead deserves punishment, his mind is still utterly at ease because he knows that his misfortune does not result from any side factor, but from Hashem alone. Since he did not fulfill his responsibilities to his Creator, he brought him to this distressing situation. Therefore, he
Here's no one.
one but Hashem alone. Moreover, he realizes that this difficulty is for his own good, for, as is well known, even the punishments ordained by the Torah are expressions of Hashem's kindness, cleansing a person from the blemish of sin. Thus, there is no place for worry or fear.
So this is not believing that Hashem is going to give me everything I need, but whatever he does, I'm good, I'm game. I trust that he knows best. If I don't deserve punishment, for sure a miracle will happen. And if I do, I'm in Hashem's hands. Hashem is the only one I fear. I don't fear anyone. I fear Hashem. And Hashem is he's good, and therefore he probably wants to help me by punishing me. The punishment will only refine and make me fit to be a better person. So nothing to worry about. That sounds like a pretty high madrega. And maybe that's the answer. Continue accordingly.
There is no contradiction. A person may have absolute bitachon in Hashem, even though he knows that possibly his sin will cause him to be found unworthy of being rescued from the impending misfortune. This knowledge does not detract from his peace of mind, for he realizes that whatever happens to him comes from Hashem.
And Yaakov and Moshe were scared, seemed to be afraid of the circumstance, not of God. They were afraid of Esau or afraid of Og. What are you afraid of? It's only Hashem. No one else is around. No one else has any power. You're in Hashem's hands. So if you'll be punished, take it, accept it. Serenely, calmly. The fact that we're nervous shows on a lack of bitachon. That could be an answer. Sounds like a good answer. But the Rebbe is going to soon refute this answer. So at this point, the Rebbe seems to be answering the question. Let's go to the next paragraph. According to this explanation,
we can appreciate the intent of the commentators to the Medrash who maintain that one ought not to be afraid, and that we should not learn from the conduct of Yaakov and Moshe, who showed fear. As is evident from the plain meaning of the relevant passages, they feared the immediate cause of their distress.
They weren't fearing Hashem, they were fearing the cause of their distress. Yaakov was afraid of Esau. Continue.
As it is written, and Yaakov was very frightened and distressed, and he therefore divided the people. Similarly, Moshe had to be warned not to fear Og. Such fear indicates that something was lacking lacking in their consummate bitachon in Hashem.
You sit calm. If you really trust that whatever Hashem does is good, Hashem, it's up to you. Whatever you do, I accept. So that seems to be a fair explanation. However, the Rebbe is going to reject this. This explanation is, however, I'll say the next part, however, insufficient. For it is obvious that the essence of bitachon goes beyond merely attaining the peace of mind that comes from the awareness that everything is ordained by the hand of Hashem. Instead, it means that the person who has bitachon trusts that he will receive visible and manifest good, i.e. that God will rescue him from his difficulties, not that whatever Hashem does, I'll accept. That's only after it happens. After a person has already gone through pain and suffering. Then you could say, Hashem is not to be blamed, he knows best. I accept whatever he did. But before the pain, when you're in danger, it hasn't happened yet, but you're in danger. There's a 99% chance that you're going to suffer, but it hasn't happened yet. Then trust in Hashem, not just whatever he said, whatever he does, I'll accept. No, he will give you what you need. That now is, we're back to the same question again. How do you know Hashem's going to give you what you need? Based on what? What's wrong with feeling I don't deserve? If I'm not fit, why should I believe that I'm going to get exactly what I want? Revealed and obvious good. Why should I feel that way? The Rebbe is saying bitachon does not mean, like many people do not learn Chassidus. They learn like this. They learn whatever the Eibush does, all good, be peace, just be calm and serene. That's great. They're very important madrega to be on only after the suffering. But before the suffering, before you actually have gone through it, always trust it's going to work out exactly the way you want it to work out. You understand the question? It's obvious. What basis is there for that? In fact, the Rebbe later on in the Sicha is going to learn if that's the case, we might as well get rid of the whole idea of schar of punishment. If you're always going to believe Hashem will always help me, no matter what, then no one will ever be punished. If everyone has bitachon, no one will ever be punished. How could you destroy the whole very important principle of faith that Hashem does punish for people who deserve punishment? No. I deserve it, I don't deserve, Hashem will come through. What's that based on? That's the question of the Sicha. So the Rebbe says here on the end of page 9 that it seems much more than just trusting that Hashem knows best. He will actually give me what I need, what I understand I need. Okay. Page 10. According to the above explanation, however, it appears that this plain meaning of bitachon beyond the reach of the majority of the Jewish people. Since there's no righteous man on earth who does only good and does not sin, who can judge himself as being worthy of God's visible and apparent kindness? Hence, for most people, bitachon would be reflected primarily in the peace of mind that results from their awareness that even if they are not worthy of divine beneficence, everything comes from Hashem and is for their good, even if the good is not visible and manifest. According to this approach, only perfectly righteous men whose divine service has reached consummate perfection and who therefore do not have to worry about the possible effects of sin can trust that they will receive manifest and apparent good. There were 4 people who were known to have perfection, perfect life, no sin whatsoever, not even in the most subtle way. You know who the 4 were? Binyamin, Yosef's brother, Binyamin Jacobson, Yaakov's son, Binyamin, Jacobson family. And then we have Amram, the father of Moshe, Yishai, the father of David HaMelech, and someone by the name of Kilov, not a very well-known figure. They say these 4 people were the 4, that the only reason why they died is because of the Chedet Hadas. They had no reason for their life to be terminated. But because God decreed that after the sin of Eitz Hadas, death has to take place, person can't live forever, that's the only reason why they died. Okay, but besides those few people, no one else can say they're perfect. Such a conception, however, runs contrary. So the Rebbe says, I'm sorry, you can't say that. Such a conception, however, runs contrary to the approach of the author of Teves Halavovis, this book over here, who states in his explanation of the circumstances in which bitachon is conceivable, that the one who is trusted is infinitely magnanimous and kind toward whoever is deserving and to whoever is not. Whether you're worthy or not, his kindness is endless. Moreover, his magnanimity is constant and his kindness is continuous, never ceasing and never severed. According to this view, the concept of bitachon is based on the principle that Hashem bestows manifest kindness, open kindness, even towards one who is not deserving. This requires explanation, after all. Even though Hashem's mercy extends to also to someone who is not deserving, it is not possible that a person may be deserving. Is it not possible that a person may be deserving of punishment for his undesirable deeds? What is the conceptual foundation for a person's trust that Hashem will act benevolently toward him in a visible and apparent manner, even if he's undeserving of this? How do you explain this? Page 11. So the Rebbe continues. The above questions can be resolved in the light of an adage of a Tzemach Tzedek. What does Tzemach Tzedek say? Quoted frequently by my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe Rayat. Someone has begged him to intercede in order to arouse heavenly mercy upon a person who is very ill, dangerously ill. Tzemach Tzedek answered, Trach gut in Yiddish, think well, it'll be well. Vet sein good. Think positively, and this outcome will be positive. It is apparent from the response of the Tzemach Tzedek that thinking positively, having bitachon, will in itself give rise to results that are visibly and manifestly good. Now, how do you explain this? This teaching may be explained as follows. The obligation of bitachon, which we are commanded to cultivate, is not merely a component and a corollary of one's faith and emunah. There's no such belief. Everything, Hashem is so kind that he will be kind to anyone regardless of who you are and what you deserve. There's no such klal. Because had there been a rule like that, there would be no one ever get punished. No such rule. Of course not. Of course there's a rule that Hashem punishes. What it means is that your bitachon, if you really have bitachon, what does it mean to have real bitachon? It's not easy, boy. Always is hard. Having bitachon, the word bitachon sounds like betach. What does betach mean? Betach. For sure. No question. Are you so sure that 99.999% sure that you're going to, well, that you're not going to make it? And yet, I'm not worried. It's going to work out exactly the way I want it. If you are on that madrega where the rules of nature are meaningless to you, you feel like you're in Hashem's hands. In other words, you are dismissing all the laws of nature as if they don't exist. At this point, you rise to a level where you've gone beyond your own personal nature. So Hashem reciprocates and says, since you broke your rules of believing in nature, which is so part of human nature to believe in nature, I mean, there's no chance for your survival. There's no chance. Only unbelievable. And it's going to happen in a few seconds from now. Yet the person says, I have no worry whatsoever. You're not the same person anymore. You've just risen above all the laws of nature. So Hashem says, now that you've risen above all your limitations, I will also break my limitations. I have rules. Some people deserve this, some people deserve that. There are rules, everyone has, what's coming to them. I'll break those rules. You broke your rules, I will break my rules. You have shown that you're not in your own, that you're not limited, you're not in the world of nature anymore, because you firmly believe, and you're not relying on statistics. If you're relying on statistics, that's not bitachon. There's no chance of survival. Zero. And yet you have this feeling of serenity. It's going to happen. That's a madrega. That bitachon has lifted you. That bitachon has just risen, caused the person to rise above everything that's going on in the world. So Hashem says, now that you've risen, you're in my world. In my world, there are no limitations. When I have rules of who has to be punished, that's when Hashem lowers himself to the laws of nature. And laws of nature say everyone is different. But when you dismiss every calculation possible, and you really believe, it's like it comes natural to you. I don't even have any questions. I'm not bothered by the laws of nature at all. Hashem is the one in charge. If you firmly have that, that's an avodah. That's not easy. That avodah lifts you up to a level where Hashem says, you've now caused me to rise up to my level, my true level. In my true level, there are no limitations. And everyone can have unlimited, revealed, manifest good. When are there rules? When Hashem lowers himself to the laws of his own laws of nature. Well, his own laws of nature are what Teves says. Person does this, you got to get that. Person does that, he deserves this. So that's how it works. It's a meter connected meter, measure for measure. Hashem is reciprocating according to what you've just done. So even though the person hasn't done tshuva yet, not because the person doesn't want to do tshuva, they haven't been able to have this serious tshuva, but they have this bitachon, Hashem will respond for sure. But it has to be true bitachon and not relying on In Hebrew, you have the word tikva. You know what tikva means? I hope. You know, like you're hanging you're hanging down from a building, a tall building, you know, from the Twin Towers, and you're trying to, and you have to hold on, but you can very easily, the rope can tear and you can fall. Hope. You're lying on something. There's a story in Tanakh about this. Hoping on, okay, 1%, but that's not called bitachon. Bitachon means when there's nothing to rely on. It's unless Hashem. There's no chance in the world. You think that's easy? Hashem says, so the Baal Shem Tov says, if a person wants to, if Hashem wants to punish a person, he has to take away his power of bitachon. Because if the person would have true bitachon, Hashem is like, has his hands tied by Yaakov. He will for sure grant that person what the person needs in a revealed good. So now we can go back. I mean, I'm going to go through the Sicha next week also. I want to, but there were a lot of other sources I want to quote. But just to answer the question we asked in the beginning of the Sicha, by Yira Moshe was afraid. And there's no sequel. There's no follow-up, right? He didn't run away. The next part it says, and Parai heard. You know why Parai heard? You know why he had to run away? Because he didn't have the bitachon. Because Moshe was afraid. In fact, he even verbalized his fear. He said, Vayoma, and he says, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. Making it really, like, concretizing his fear by saying, not only in his heart he was afraid, but he actually said the words, Ochei noda hadover. That created Parai's finding out about it. This is what caused Parai to find out about it and Parai to run after him, meaning he had to escape. If Moshe would not have had the fear, he would not have to run away. So Vayira Moshe, and thus, no wonder why Parai found out about it. Lack of bitachon. So it does have a sequel. It does have a hemshech. His fear caused the consequence. It had a consequence. The consequence was that, okay, you're afraid, meaning laws of nature are real by you? Okay, I'll go by the laws of nature too. The laws of nature are that Parai is going to find out about it because this guy doesn't and Aviram are bad people. They're going to be informers. And what's natural? When Parai hears about it, he's going to get angry. If you are limited to nature, then nature will run its course. Now, this does not mean, bitachon does not mean I shouldn't do anything. Sit back and rely on miracles. Hashem wants us to do everything we can according to the laws of nature. But if you've done everything you could according to the laws of nature, and you haven't had your salvation, now you can say, okay, God, I did everything you told me to do. Now I have full bitachon. But you're not allowed to say, oh, I can sit back and just wait for the miracles to happen. Most people can't do that. Only certain tzaddikim are allowed to do that. In fact, Yosef HaTzadik was punished for relying on the Sar HaMashkim, on the butler. Why was he punished? He wasn't relying on the butler, he was relying on Hashem, using the butler as an intermediary. Hashem will help him through the butler, through the Sar HaMashkim. What's wrong with that? Send me a shliach. What is wrong with that? If you're Yosef HaTzadik and you're so far removed from this world, you don't need to go through nature, the laws of nature. Only people that are people of this world who see nature as a natural phenomenon. I mean, we're limited people, and nature is topes makom, does have credibility by us. We go by that. We live by it on a daily basis. You plant a seed. Do you have any questions in your mind if the seed will cause growth? You need to have emunah bitachon Hashem, things will grow. Most people know. I trust that when you plant a seed, things are going to grow. I don't need to have bitachon Hashem. But if you're Yosef HaTzadik, you're on that level where I don't trust anything. Everything is, in other words, just as much as I trust on Hashem, I have to trust in Hashem when there's a miracle. When I need a miracle, I trust in Hashem even when I don't need a miracle. I'm not, this whole world, if you're on that level, then you can sit back and have bitachon that Hashem will answer you directly without any intermediary. Yosef was therefore punished because he was on a much higher level. But for most people, we have to serve Hashem through the means of nature, and if that doesn't work, then bitachon kicks in. Someone asked me a question, then why do we daven? Why are you davening to Hashem? Have bitachon. Isn't davening a sign that you don't have bitachon? You're praying, you're davening, please help me. Hashem will help. If you have bitachon, then you know He's going to help. So what are you davening for?
Haley.
But you already have bitachon. You have the keli. Okay, so you were saying that the davening is what gives you the power to have bitachon.
Because you trust Hashem.
Yeah, that's what the davening is. What goes together with the bitachon. The davening lifts me up to a level where I can have this bitachon. Anyways, this is the end of this class. Today's class. I want to continue this next week to have much more material to my Rebbe Sicha to talk about.
I was actually doing the Sicha yesterday. I was doing the Sicha yesterday.
Oh yeah. You have no work today in the store?
Do later on. Yeah, I saw her work actually. in the store.
Oh.
She came. We have to do the makeup. It was cute.
Okay.
Thank
Have a nice
you.
day.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. It's a great day.
Okay. Get together.
Why? You're really scared to tell. I know that feeling.